All right, thank you very much. This is awesome. We got a great panel, and I'll go right ahead and jump right into it. And I think we'll start with Jimmy. And I think most people know you folks, but if you could just give a kind of couple sentence introduction of yourself. And we'll just start with the first question on what makes Bitcoin and what values do Bitcoin in America share, and what can make Bitcoin in America great again? Jimmy Song.
Yeah, so I'm Jimmy Song. I'm a Bitcoin expert. I've written some books and stuff. But to answer your question, what makes Bitcoin great and what it has in common with American values is definitely not what we've been seeing on the stage for the last 3 hours. I don't know how many of you have been watching it or seeing what they've been talking about, but we just had a talk by BlackRock people, ETFs, banking, and all that stuff. That is not Bitcoin. That is not what makes Bitcoin great. That is not what makes America great. This is the rent-seeking class, the administrative state, the people that bow down to the powers that be. That is not what makes Bitcoin great. What makes Bitcoin great is liberty, freedom, self-sovereignty. Those are the things that this country was founded on. And unfortunately, because of fiat money, because of the power of the money printing press, what we've gotten is an administrative state that rules over us, that thinks that they're better than us, that try to basically regulate us out of existence. We have our own wills. We have agency, and that's what Bitcoin represents. And unfortunately, we're in a position where all of these people are coming in and trying to take influence. So I see our panel as sort of like cold water being thrown at all of the other panels that just happened. I hate that this is what the Bitcoin conferences are talking about, is banking and ETFs and BlackRock. Those aren't my values. Those haven't been Bitcoin's values. Those aren't American values.
Yeah.
I agree, absolutely. 100%. I'm Luke Rudkowski. I autistically scream into a camera for my YouTube channel. And I want to add to that because I do believe America was founded on disrupting rebellion and understanding that taxation is theft. And I think Bitcoin was also founded on disrupting rebellion and understanding that taxation is theft, but with autists. And I think it really does provide an amazing opportunity to a lot of people to really see the problems that government created, and instead of going to the government for help, innovating, creating, and expanding something totally different outside the scope of it, where people could actually solve each other's problems without needing permission from the government, without needing to, of course, plead, without needing to, of course, bow down to the rulers. As, of course, if you look at the news today, it's almost everything that Ron Paul and independent media predicted years ago. And the movement, the shift, I think, is slowly aligning towards understanding the true power of this, as long as it stays true to its ethos. And if you look at Bitcoin, you look at the early adopters, you look at the people who kind of spearheaded it, it was Ron Paul, it was the anarchists, it was the free staters, it was individuals that think independently outside of the state. And I think those ethos need to stay within this community and be reminded that this is truly what Bitcoin is about.
Nice.
Yeah. I am Ben Askren. I wrestled, I went to the Olympics, I fought a bunch of people. People like that, I guess. And then I got into Bitcoin in 2017. And along the same lines, none of us disagree, but I think one of the most important things about Bitcoin is self-sovereignty, right? The ability to take care of yourself. And I told my wife earlier, when I come to one of these Bitcoin conferences, it's just, people are just a little different. I meet people who are a lot more like-minded to myself than maybe general people walking on the street. And when we talk about self-sovereignty and American history, sometimes when things are tough, I think back to like how easy we actually have it. And, you know, I tell people about Bitcoin, you have this treasure and you keep your money yourself. And like, oh my God, it's so scary. I have no third party to take care of myself. And it's like, but wait, at some point in American history, people packed all their shit up in a wagon and they took a couple horses across America and they relied on no one but themselves. There was no one to bail them out. And when I meet Bitcoiners, it's like they want to have some of their own land. They want to make some of their own food. They want some chickens, go get the eggs. They want to raise their own families. and instill values in their kids that they want to have in their kids. They don't want the state raising their kids. And so when I think about Bitcoin and I think about the American foundation, it's self-sovereignty, taking responsibility for yourself, and that's what Bitcoin's all about.
Nice. So Ben, you're a world-class athlete. I have a friend who's a trainer, and he said that almost everybody who trains, their politics gets affected. Do you see some kind of similarity between like people who take care of themselves and fitness and this sort of theme of Bitcoin and self-sufficiency that you mentioned?
Yeah, 100%. I think there's a few mixed martial artists on the panel, I think either tomorrow or Saturday. And I think specifically in the mixed martial artist community, we are a little bit anti-authoritarian, very individualistic. And so there's more mixed martial artists that come to Bitcoin and understand it right away than I think other fields. And it's just because we are okay with that self-sovereignty and we are okay with taking responsibility for ourselves and our actions, and we don't like people telling us what to do, right? We love the freedom, and so, yeah, I think that kind of lends itself a little bit easier.
Nice.
Yes.
So speaking of rebels, Luke, when we were backstage, we were talking, we knew each other long before Bitcoin. You've been an activist in liberty circles for a long, long time. You mentioned Free State Project. Can you talk a little bit more about, kind of these core values and what this space was really all about back in those days and how it fits and why your liberty leanings brought you into this industry?
It was a natural kind of progression, especially being friends with a lot of people in this kind of industry that were on the forefront of it. A lot of people saw this as a major kind of disruption. A lot of people saw this as an answer to the Federal Reserve that is literally printing people into poverty. We were warning about the problems of the larger financial banking system before it was cool. Now it's cool. Now everyone's complaining about inflation. We were complaining about inflation even back then. And then to see kind of a potential to have an alternative to the Fiat Federal Reserve banking system that was set up by these secret families, everyone was kind of interested. Everyone was kind of curious. People were still kind of maybe looking at it as maybe potentially a PSYOP within a PSYOP. But it's pretty clear that the kind of innovation, the kind of people that it has propped up, the amount of prosperity that it has brought individuals and people, as well as solutions to help individuals, it clearly was something that the state didn't like. It doesn't like it anymore. It's going after a lot of the developers. It's stopping a lot of the innovation. It's standing in the way from allowing it to really be what it should automatically be, for what people envisioned it to be. And I think those larger ethos is something that a lot of people came to understanding now more than ever, and they kind of came to us. We didn't change. We never shifted our values. We always believed that there was a larger financial problem looming, and a lot of people saw Bitcoin as a solution to that.
Nice. Jimmy, you mentioned the administrative state. How do you see what do you think of how do you define the administrative state, and how does it fit with the fiat system and the Bitcoin system?
Yeah, the administrative state is just all the people that are rent-seeking. And rent-seeking is this idea that you get in the middle of a bilateral transaction and take some cut without adding any value. And there's plenty of that in this economy. I would estimate something like 50+%. You ask any management consultant about any large company, and you can easily cut 50%. And Elon Musk proved this with X, where he fired 90% of their people, and the site ran fine, right? Like maybe they had a couple of hiccups, but being able to cut out 90% and not having anything happen tells you that these were people that weren't adding any value. They didn't have anything that they needed to do. But this human instinct for rent-seeking, for trying to get something for nothing, essentially, like doing minimal amount of work, it is there. It's part of our laziness, and it sort of like corrupts the soul. And unfortunately, that is still prevalent today. Not just in the normal economy, but even here, right? Like the last three panels, just to go back, they talked about Web3, about Ethereum, and about the new ETFs and all that stuff. This is rent-seeking, people, right? Like they wanted fractional reserve bank and stuff like that. This is rent-seeking. This is the administrative state. This is what's trying to take over and sort of corrupt Bitcoin. Thankfully, we have all of you, right? You guys understand the values of Bitcoin, and we're going to have to fight for it, guys. It's not going to come for free. right? Like, if you want something good, you have to fight. You have to be willing to stand up to these people that want to change Bitcoin and put it on a course that they don't want. And, I love this panel's, title, Make Bitcoin in America Great Again, because really the entire, Trumpian MAGA movement, and believe me, I have many problems with Trump, and maybe we can get into that later. The entire MAGA thing was about, okay, the values have sort of drifted away from what we actually believe. And he was sort of like the representative of that, saying, okay, we need to bring things back to when America was better. Now, like I said, I have many problems with that, but at least the marketing of it and the message of that is pretty solid, right? There's a sound basis for that. There is sort of like an administrative state, rent seekers, people that are sucking at the teat, and it's all because of fiat money. When you have a money printer that is able to create value out of nothing and make it look like a market process because they're paying for it, even though it's really stolen from everybody else, and especially being able to do that outside of America and stealing from the poorest and most vulnerable people all over the world in the developing countries, the orphan in North Africa, the Nigerian business owner. This is what happens, right? And you get a rent-seeking administrative class, many of which I think, honestly, have been on this stage the last few hours. Those are the people taking it, and those are the people that we need to make sure aren't taking over with Bitcoin.
Interesting. Luke, how do we fight back against this? What Jimmy's talking about, I think we've all seen it, particularly people who've been in the space a while. We've seen a radical transformation. I mean, Jimmy's right. If at a meeting like this 10 years ago, it would have been 99% libertarians and ANCAPs, and now we have, not necessarily here, but other places in the industry, even more focus on KYC and some of the panels and stuff that Jimmy's talking about, inordinate amount of focus on compliance and these kind of things. How do you shake people out of that? You've done a lot of communication on this kind of thing. How do you get people to reverse that course? And what would you say to the newer Bitcoiners here who maybe think that it's all about paperwork and compliance and bringing the so-called adults in the room?
They're the bad autists. We need the good autists that support independence, that support freedom, that support causes like Free Ross. And I think rallying behind larger causes like that speak to the kind of larger ethos of everything. And Donald Trump coming to the Libertarian National Convention and conceding that he is going to be freeing Ross is a major move in the right direction. That is a step that needed to happen a long time ago. It's happening with Donald Trump. He's speaking up for it, and I think that representation, that policy, is something that truly is shifting the tide. Now, you're going to have the do-gooders, you're going to have the people who are going to want to do everything correctly, but it's important for individuals to understand the true power that they have within themselves to do little things like support your local black market, support your local farm, support individuals and talk to them about Bitcoin and ways to transact and ways to, of course, get into this kind of industry from a real grassroots effort that truly does prioritize the individual over the BlackRocks, over the Federal Reserves, over the big banking systems that have hijacked our way of life and are routinely destroying it. So you got to be vocal. You got to keep speaking out about it. You got to keep pressing the ideas, and you got to represent those ideas yourself as best as you can as an individual.
Nice. Ben, what do you think about the current political environment? And I mean, this is obviously a very political focused event now with Trump coming here and everything. What do you think about that? And how do you think that relates to sort of America's history and when we've been the greatest that we've been?
Yeah, so I think it's, I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent if that's okay with you.
You got it.
All right. I think it is, there's this saying that you don't change Bitcoin, Bitcoin changes you. And I think we're watching that with everyone in politics coming to Bitcoin. But, and obviously, Jimmy's informed my thought process a little bit. He's got a great book called Fiat Ruins Everything. You guys read it or no? Oh, man, we need more claps than that. Buy that damn book, people. But anyways, one of the things that I really think about with this Make Bitcoin America Great Again is, 100 years ago in America, we were leading the world in production, innovation, all this stuff. And now the best and brightest minds in America are going into financial services. It's really sad to me. I coach wrestling. They go to college, and then a couple years later, I say, "Hey, what are you going to do when you grow up?" And so many of them say, "Well, I'm going to do financial services." I'm like, it's such a grift. You're not producing or providing anything. And so, if we can get the best and brightest minds in America to go back into real innovation and real production, I think that's where it's at. And I think that's a really, really important concept for us.
And it's important to understand that a lot of that is due to the presence of fiat money. And Richard Cantillon wrote about this in like 1723, that when you have the money printer, manufacturing leaves because labor is cheaper elsewhere. What's happened since 1971? Every major manufacturer has left the United States for the cheaper shores of offshore stuff. This is why when you're the world reserve currency, you hollow out your industrial base. And this is one of the things that the politicians are rightfully focused on, but they don't know the solution. The solution is getting rid of the dollar reserve currency. And, unfortunately, politically, that's not really popular because they can't spend, whatever they want. But this is a power that the market's going to take away from them eventually, or they're going to have to figure out some other way to do it, or they're going to just sort of have to suffer the consequences. Unfortunately, we have this 4-year political cycle where every president or every party that comes into power is incentivized to suck it dry of whatever value that they can, and then just sort of like leave the problems for the next administration. The can has been kicked down the road for so long. We keep running deficits. The numbers just look more and more unreal. And unfortunately, this none of the parties that are running right now has any plan for figuring this out, right? But really, it comes down to the Federal Reserve. It comes down to just doing what you do in your own household, right? Balancing your budget and making sure that you're not spending more than you take in and things like that. They're doing none of this, right? It's very disappointing.
Yeah, no, it's right. I like the work that you've done and people like Safety have done talking about how fiat breaks everything. I mean, even in Safe's book, there's even talks about food, even obesity. It's all related to fiat. And I definitely encourage people to read your book. What do you think the financial services world would look like if we weren't in such a fiat-dominated world?
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it would be gutted, right? Because the thing about financial services and the reason why they're all having an orgasm over an Ethereum ETF or whatever is because they get to manage your money, right? And there's this myth that you need diversification or whatever. Under the gold standard, people just kept their money in gold. That was it. It was so simple. But instead, now you have entire industries of people that are telling you what to do with your money. And of course, if they get to grab your money, they can charge a fee here, charge a fee there, and that ends up being incredibly lucrative. This is what the entire financial services system is built on, is because fiat is not a very good store of value, so you have to put it into all this other stuff. And, of course, real estate has some risk, and stocks have some risk, and, art has some risk or whatever. So they're like, okay, well, we need to spread the risk over all of these things. Yeah. That is not the normal state of things, right? If you have a good store of value, then that's what you just put it in. That's it. Unfortunately, we have this entire industry of banking and financial services that has just sort of grown up like cancer in our civilization today, and they take up a significant part of the economy. And this is what's essentially hollowed out the industrial base. It's hollowed out the invention, the progress, and stuff like that. We've progressed so little since the 50s and 60s. Think about it. We had nuclear-powered submarines in the 50s and 60s. This is a vehicle that does not need to refuel for 18 months, okay, because of nuclear power. Where is that technology? Why do I have to fill up my car with gas every week, right? Why are airplanes so big and their fuselages so big and things like that? You should be able to fly around the world, right, with that much power. Instead, all of that progress stops because the incumbents come into power and they get to do whatever they want. So, of course, the incumbents put up all sorts of regulation to make it impossible, and they survive through the financial services and debt and money printing, and you get no progress, right? Look at what they thought the future would be from 1950, right? They thought we would have flying cars and we'd be able to go from, we'd have colonies on Mars and stuff like that. Where's that progress? None of that has happened because fiat slows everything down. It makes everything static. it preserves the status quo at the expense of invention and creativity and entrepreneurship.
Can I add to that, Jimmy?
Yeah.
I think, and I think that the American people, when I talk to my friends, so brainwashed into thinking we have to invest. It's almost like a second job. Like you go to work and then you come home and you study what are you going to invest in. You're going to buy stocks, you're going to buy real estate. And the reason we feel that way is because our money's dog shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're for real, if your money held value, you wouldn't have to invest. And that's what Bitcoin can be. When that money's inflating at 8 to 12% per year, if all you do is save money, you're going to lose. And so everyone feels, oh, we have to invest, we have to invest. But we don't have to invest because America's got a gigantic money printer and they just keep pushing it out there. If we just had a really solid money, then we wouldn't have to do that. And that's what Bitcoin is. And, Bitcoin is a lot of things to a lot of people. And for me, what I think it is, Bitcoin is the best money human beings have ever been able to invent. That's what it is.
I like it. Luke, to Jimmy's point about, before we had this fiat system, people would measure their wealth in gold. And, it's interesting, you look back at these old TV shows about the English lords and stuff, they say, Lord so-and-so has 5,000 pounds. They would measure their wealth, and the entrepreneurs of the day, they'd take actual gold coins, they put it in their safe behind, when you see the Uncle Scrooge, Christmas special, that's how people measure their wealth, which is a lot the way Bitcoiners do it. They keep stacking and they're not playing these games. How do you think the world will look on is that the way we should go? And will Bitcoin help us go that way? Would that be a healthier form of investing? And what would the world look like if we win?
I think if we win, we're going to make all the systems that are in play right now obsolete. They're going to become useless because they are useless, and they only exist because we keep playing into them. And once we seek other alternatives, and once we understand that the true power lies within us and communities and the people we build and grow and network with, then the game's over. To answer the question that you kind of asked me beforehand, I think the establishment kind of Bitcoin crowd needs to understand that the banks are absolutely ruthless and evil. It's a con. It is a game against you. You are not a part of that game. You are there to be a pawn. You are there to lose. You are there to, of course, be useful to them. But once you figure out a way to be useful to yourself, once you become useful to your family, to your neighborhoods, to your communities, everything changes. So this is the power of these kind of events, these types of conversations, for people to understand the game's rigged, and it's not rigged in your favor. But you could rig it in your favor by waking up to all these alternatives, waking up to all these exciting people doing all these really fun projects, all these really cool things. And I think this is really where the kind of synergy, the energy is that we really need to kind of propel forward more than ever now than before.
Nice. Well, we're almost out of time. I'll give I'd like to get each person to close quickly with 45 seconds or so on what you would like to see over the next 5 and 10 years of where you want to see America and Bitcoin. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Well, so first of all, let me say that I am very disappointed in Trump for criticizing Bukele for cleaning up his streets. I'm also disappointed in Trump for releasing an NFT where he made $1 million. I'm also disappointed in Trump for taking money from shitcoiners and basically saying, we'll give you what you want. I say this because I expected more from him. I thought he would actually investigate this further. But unfortunately, he's playing the game that every politician plays, which is to widen your base. Let's invite everybody into the tent. And he's inviting a lot of rats into the nest. I'm sorry, but that's basically what he's doing. I would like to see in 5 to 10 years a United States that is more on a Bitcoin standard, that has a lot of people that are, saving, that are, creating and being entrepreneurs, starting businesses and things like that. Unfortunately, the deep state, the administrative state, the rent seekers are not going to go away quietly. And I believe that there's going to be some sort of fight. It may play out in the political arena. It may not. It may play out on the streets. Who knows? We might have civil war. I don't know. But there is a fight that needs to be had, and it's not going to be quiet.
I understand some of your criticism, but I think this also provides us a unique opportunity to at least have that conversation that we wouldn't have under any other type of administration. And I thank Donald Trump for at least opening up that conversation, listening to us, and being able to, of course, promote things like free Ross, promote deregulation, promote anti-war values, anti-tax values, which aren't perfect. You can always criticize them, and I think we need to criticize them, so I thank you for doing that. But at the same time, we also have to incentivize those larger conversations, be there for him, and in a perfect world 5 years from now, the government isn't in my life, isn't in your life, and we are the true masters of our own existence.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what I was going to say. Stole my answer. Damn it, Luke. Yeah, I mean, where I started was self-sovereignty. America got founded on people who were willing to take responsibility and get on a boat and come across the ocean or go across America on a wagon train and take responsibility for themselves. And I think that's one of the biggest values that Bitcoin provides. So hopefully we can do that. And then, something maybe we can't control unless we all go into Bitcoin is hopefully the government gets a little smaller. They get out of our lives more. They stop printing the dollars into infinity. And we can all live a happy, peaceful existence.
Well, this nation was founded by a bunch of people who looked at a tyrannical system and said, no more. And this industry was founded the same way. And it's a real pleasure to be on the stage with these folks that have been at the forefront of doing that, and to be here with all of you in the audience who've also, in your own way, worked for this freedom. And I think the alignment between Bitcoin and America is something significant and something that we're all going to change the world together. So thank you very much, and it's been a real pleasure, gentlemen.
Thank you.
The Bitcoin Conference. We started with a dream to build a community focused on Bitcoin. It all started in 2019 in the heart of San Francisco, the first major Bitcoin conference in years that kickstarted a revolution. And then Miami, a place where enthusiasts, developers, dreamers, and innovators could come together to make Bitcoin better. It has been an amazing 5 years and 8 conferences, thanks to all of you. Bitcoin Conference has become the largest premier global Bitcoin gathering in the world, leading hyper-Bitcoinization. While Miami was incredible, it was time to set the stage for Bitcoin in a new city. So we took the conference on the road. Nashville, Tennessee was the obvious choice, a city known for music and freedom. Next year, the conference is hitting the road again in search of the next global stage. We are headed to a new city next year. With hyper-Bitcoinization right around the corner, we have no plans to take the foot off the gas. Find out where we are headed next. Scan the QR code and be at the main stage for the big announcement.